The moment you pressed play on this video, something happened inside you. A microscopic, almost imperceptible movement, but one that always precedes profound change. It's not anxiety. It's not nervousness. It's not anticipation. It's something much stranger. The feeling that your perceptions are about to reorganize everything you thought you knew about yourself. And here's the uncomfortable detail that almost no one admits. For years, you haven't been living your life. You've been monitoring your life. Monitoring what you say, how you say it, how it sounds, how it looks, how you interpret it, how others interpret you, how you should have been, how you should have responded, how you should have behaved. And this constant monitoring, this psychological system that watches over every micro decision, has built an invisible prison around you. You didn't notice when you entered it. You didn't notice when it became a habit. You didn't notice when it became your identity. But you noticed the weight. And if you're watching this now, there's a simple reason. The monitoring has started to fail. The mental structure that kept you trapped has started to crack. You've been feeling it lately, haven't you? That feeling of, I don't fit myself anymore. That dissonance between who you are and how you behave. That silent irritation with patterns you've always repeated. That deep fatigue with old versions of your personality. What you are about to discover is that this is not burnout. It is not a lack of confidence. It is not a social problem. It is a transition of consciousness. And most impressive, it begins the second you stop monitoring yourself. Because there is a point, just one, where reality ceases to be something you manage and begins to be something that responds to you. Today, you will see that point forming. But first, let me tell you something that shouldn't be possible. The simple act of observing this monitoring has already begun to deprogram it. And when the monitoring breaks down, when you stop watching yourself, your perception, your relationships, your behavior, and even what you attract begin to reorganize in a cascade. That's what we're going to explore now. And once you understand the mechanism, you'll never be able to go back to the old you. There is a moment in every person's life, a quiet, almost invisible turning point, when the mind finally becomes aware of the thing that has been sabotaging them for years. Not a trauma, not a belief, not a personality trait, but something deeper, older, and far more embedded in the architecture of the human psyche, the self-monitoring instinct. It begins as protection, then becomes vigilance, then becomes habit, then becomes identity, and eventually, it becomes the primary filter through which you experience reality. This is why you can feel completely normal in some situations and unbearably tense in others. Why you can be relaxed with certain people and emotionally paralyzed with others. Why you can think clearly alone but collapse internally when eyes are on you. Why some opportunities feel too heavy, even when you want them desperately. The truth is uncomfortable. You're not reacting to the world. You're reacting to the version of yourself that is reacting to the world. You're living one layer removed from your actual experience. Once I understood this, everything I thought I knew about human behavior collapsed. Because the moment you observe your own self-monitoring, not the symptoms, not the social anxiety, not the tension, but the mechanism itself, you begin to recognize how much of your life has been constructed around avoiding internal noise rather than responding to external reality. And here is the part that most people will never realize. When you monitor yourself, you exit the moment. When you exit the moment, you lose presence. When you lose presence, you lose influence. When you lose influence, life stops responding to you and begins happening around you. That's why your timing feels off. Why you second-guess yourself mid-sentence. Why conversations feel heavier than they should. Why opportunities slip through your fingers before they even begin. Why people pull back without knowing why. Why you feel like you're watching yourself live instead of living. It's not fate. It's not a flaw. It's not a personality type. It's the observer loop. The internal surveillance mechanism that keeps you trapped inside your own head. And here's the twist you're not expecting. The moment you stop interfering with your own experience, your entire reality begins reorganizing itself in real time. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, not symbolically. Literally, in the way people respond to you, in the opportunities that appear, in the sharpness of your decisions, in the clarity of your perception. Because presence is not confidence. Presence is not charisma. Presence is not self-esteem. Presence is what emerges when the noise of self-monitoring goes silent. That's the thesis of this entire video. Not motivational, not philosophical, but psychological and observable. The day you stop monitoring yourself is the day your reality begins to align. Now we go deeper. There is a moment, subtle, brief, and easy to miss, when you first catch the self-monitoring mechanism in real time. It does not feel like an epiphany. It feels like a flicker, like the mind hesitating before it applies the filter it has applied your entire life. My moment happened in a place so ordinary it almost felt wrong to assign meaning to it. I wasn't journaling, meditating, or having some dramatic emotional collapse. I was standing in a line, a simple, boring, nothing special moment, waiting to speak to someone who held a small but meaningful opportunity in their hands. The moment I realized I was next in line, something inside me clicked into a familiar configuration. My spine straightened a little too sharply. My breath shortened half a degree. My attention narrowed, not on the moment, but on myself. My vision even felt slightly tighter around the edges. A faint pressure rose in my chest, that anticipatory, here we go tension. And that was the first shock. The pressure entered before the moment even happened. I wasn't reacting to anything external. I was reacting to the fact that I would soon react. That's when I saw the loop. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't anxiety. It wasn't fear. It was the mind slipping into its observation stance, becoming the watcher, not the participant. It felt like I had stepped 1 inch outside of myself, watching myself prepare to perform. And that's the key word: perform. Most people never realize this, but the self-monitoring mechanism is not primarily about survival. It's about performance, the unconscious belief that the moment must be managed, optimized, or controlled. And the sequence is always the same. You anticipate the moment. The moment activates your observer. The observer generates internal pressure. The pressure bleeds through your micro-behaviors. People feel the pressure. Their subtle withdrawal confirms your fear, and the loop tightens. This is why some interactions feel cursed from the first 10 seconds. Not because you said the wrong thing, not because you're awkward, not because the other person is cold, but because the moment you started observing yourself, you disappeared from the room. And as I stood in that line, something unusual happened. I noticed the moment the observer activated. Not after, not during the collapse, at the exact instant of ignition. For most of my life, I had experienced the symptoms, the tightness, the self-correction, the slight social imbalance, the withdrawal from others, the tiredness afterward, the frustration of knowing I wasn't myself. But I had never seen the mechanism, and once I saw it, the next realization hit with almost physical force. The observer wasn't protecting me. It was suffocating me. Every opportunity I had ruined, quietly, politely, invisibly, had not been ruined because I said the wrong thing. They were ruined because I wasn't there when the moment arrived. The observer was. The version of me that people met was not the real me. It was the self-monitored version. Tight, cautious, pre-corrected, overly aware, slightly sped up, internally loud. People weren't responding to my personality. They were responding to my instability. And for the first time, I watched the loop from the outside with clinical clarity. The shift was microscopic but monumental. Instead of asking, "How do I look? How will this go? Do I seem normal? Am I doing well?" A different question appeared, quiet, non-judgmental, and almost neutral. Why am I observing myself right now? Not, "What's wrong with me?" Not, "How do I fix this?" Just, observation of the observer. And that single layer of awareness cracked the loop. Because the mind cannot monitor itself and observe the monitoring at the same time. The mechanism collapses in on itself. It felt like someone suddenly turned off a machine that had been humming in the background my entire life. A machine I had become so used to that silence felt strange. My attention fell back into my body. My breath deepened without effort. My shoulders softened. My vision widened from tunnel to panoramic. The moment felt less like something I needed to perform correctly, and more like something I was simply inside of. The tension didn't disappear because I calmed down. It disappeared because I stopped participating in the surveillance. And that's when I realized something profound. Something that would later reshape the way I speak, the way I connect, the way I think, the way I choose opportunities. Self-monitoring is not awareness. Self-monitoring is a dissociative state. It is the mind treating your own presence as something to evaluate instead of something to inhabit. And the moment you stop feeding that mechanism, even for a breath, your reality begins to shift. People respond differently. Their eyes soften. Their body language adjusts. Their tone warms. Their sentences lengthen. Their guard drops. Your timing improves. Your thoughts flow without interruption. Your decisions feel cleaner. Your intuition becomes louder. You become recognizable to yourself again. That tiny break in the surveillance layer was the first domino, and everything else that happened afterward came from that initial crack. This is where the real transformation begins. Most people think self-monitoring is harmless, a kind of social awareness, a sign of intelligence, or a natural part of trying to make a good impression. They think it's just being careful, being thoughtful, being considerate. But once I saw the loop in real time, once I observed the shift in my own internal state, I realized something that rewrote the entire way I understood human behavior. Self-monitoring isn't a neutral habit. It is a neurological mode. A mode with its own rules, its own physics, its own consequences. And once it activates, everything, your timing, your intuition, your presence, your decision-making, becomes distorted. This isn't metaphor. This is cognitive mechanics. Let's break down the architecture of the loop so you can see why quitting self-monitoring changes your reality instantly. Not gradually, not eventually, but immediately. When the loop activates, your consciousness divides into two simultaneous vantage points. The you who is living the moment and the you who is watching yourself live it. This creates what cognitive scientists call a dual processing conflict. Two internal channels pulling your awareness in opposite directions. The first channel is experiential. The second is supervisory. In healthy states, the supervisory channel stays quiet. It only activates during danger, unfamiliarity, or complexity. But when you've lived inside patterns of fear, failure, rejection, or unpredictability, the supervisory channel becomes overdeveloped. It starts monitoring moments that do not need monitoring. And that's where the distortion begins. Because the mind cannot fully experience and fully evaluate at the same time. Something breaks. Your presence collapses into observation, and that collapse is felt by everyone around you. The second the supervisory channel activates, your brain leaves the real-time environment and begins running predictive simulations. It stops perceiving and starts calculating. You shift into, how am I being perceived? What should I say next? What impression am I making? Is this going well? Is something off? Did they notice that? Your mind moves from participation to prediction, and prediction creates tension. Why? Because prediction requires internal pressure. The body prepares for an outcome that has not yet occurred. Your nervous system enters a micro-threat response, not fight or flight. Something subtler, readiness, hypervigilance, micro-tense anticipation. The body becomes slightly braced. The breath becomes slightly shallow. The voice becomes slightly sharper. The energy becomes slightly unstable. You don't think others notice, but they do. Instantly. Humans read microsignals faster than language. When you exit the present moment, your body begins leaking signals that your nervous system is in supervisory mode. These signals are minuscule. A micropause. A micro-forced smile. A micro-shift in tone. A micro-lean forward. A micro-fast blink. A microsecond too much enthusiasm. A micro-checking of their eyes or expression. A micro-scan of the environment. You feel like you're being normal, but they feel your cost. And this is huge. People instinctively categorize others as either low cost or high cost. Not in terms of money, in terms of emotional labor. High cost people create subtle tension. Low cost people reduce it. And here's the brutal truth. Self-monitoring is the single greatest generator of social cost. Not insecurity, not awkwardness, not being quiet, not being inexperienced. Monitoring. Because when you monitor yourself, You force others to monitor you too. This is the point most people never realize, and it's the heart of why the loop ruins opportunities. People don't respond to your words. They respond to the field behind your words. Your field is your internal state, your pressure level, emotional rhythm, micro-tension, and subconscious agenda. When you're self-monitoring, your field emits instability, not danger, not hostility. Just a subtle, something's off. And humans avoid off the same way animals avoid unpredictable movement. This instinct is ancient. The moment your field emits, I'm uncertain about myself. I'm trying to manage this moment. I need this to go well. I'm afraid of misstepping. I'm pre-correcting my behavior. Other people unconsciously adjust. They shorten their answers. Their posture cools. Their tone neutralizes. Their emotional bandwidth decreases. Their curiosity fades. Their guard rises a few degrees. Their attention moves away from you. This is not judgment. It's neurology. Your pressure becomes their cognitive load. Your monitoring becomes their emotional labor. This is why quitting self-monitoring changes your reality. You stop emitting the signal that triggers withdrawal, and suddenly the entire social environment shifts around you. Here's the most shocking part. The monitored version of you isn't you. It's the defensive, predictive, outcome-dependent version. A shadow identity. That version talks faster, feels smaller, thinks noisier, holds itself tighter, becomes overly agreeable, loses timing and intuition, reads the room incorrectly, feels invisible or misunderstood, feels like they're always almost connecting, but never fully landing. People don't dislike this version of you. They simply don't bond with it, because bonding requires presence, and presence cannot exist in surveillance. This is the trap. You want things to go well. Wanting makes you monitor. Monitoring creates pressure. Pressure pushes people away. People pulling away confirms your worst fear. Fear raises monitoring. Monitoring increases pressure. Pressure accelerates the loop. This is why the loop feels self-fulfilling. It is. It's a closed feedback cycle that strengthens itself through every repetition. And the longer you stay in it, the more your identity shapes around it. This is why life feels repetitive, why opportunities feel cursed, why people react to you in predictable ways, why relationships form patterns, why personal growth hits invisible ceilings. Because it isn't your personality running the show, it's the observer. This mechanism didn't come from nowhere. Self-monitoring originates from childhood unpredictability, parental emotional volatility, early social rejection, frequent judgment, environments where mistakes had consequences, moments where being wrong felt unsafe, trauma from embarrassment or humiliation, trying to belong where you didn't fit, being the responsible one, or simply existing around people who watched you too closely. Your mind learned, being myself is not safe. I must monitor every moment to avoid pain, but that was adaptive then. It is destructive now. Your observer is a relic, a system programmed for a world you no longer live in. And this is why quitting self-monitoring feels like waking up from a trance. Because it is a trance, a cognitive hypnosis you didn't know you were in. I didn't plan to quit monitoring myself. It wasn't a technique I was trying. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't even a conscious decision. It happened in the middle of an interaction that, up until that exact second, felt like every other moment where I had sabotaged myself without realizing how. Same tension, same micro-anxiety, same sense of watching myself from the outside, same inner calculations, same predictive simulations firing in the background. You know the feeling. You're there, but you're not really there. Your body participates, but your mind is 3 steps ahead, trying to avoid an invisible mistake. That's exactly where I was. But what happened next changed everything. I was speaking with someone I respected. Not a high-stakes situation, not a job interview, not a confrontation, just a simple conversation. But because my past had conditioned me to treat every interaction as a measurement of worth, my observer loop activated instantly. I felt the familiar tightening in my chest, the slight lift in my shoulders, the micro-fastening of my voice, the subtle disconnect between my words and my awareness, the sensation that I was performing instead of participating. And then they asked me a question, a simple one. But for some reason, my mind froze. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I was watching myself try to answer it. My internal monologue split. What's the best way to say this? Am I talking too fast? Do I sound unsure? Is my expression neutral enough? Are they judging this? Does this even make sense? Should I add something else? That tiny delay, barely half a second, is all it took for the loop to tighten. I felt myself falling into the familiar pattern. And then something completely unexpected happened. Right in the middle of the micro-panic, a thought rose in my mind with absolute clarity. Not from fear, not from analysis, not from reasoning. It felt like it came from the deeper part of me, the part that had been observing my patterns quietly for years. One sentence. Why am I watching myself right now? Not in a self-critical way. Not in a defeatist tone. Just a pure, curious observation. And that question did something catastrophic to the loop. It exposed it. For the first time, instead of trying to fix my behavior, instead of trying to be smoother, instead of trying to be impressive, instead of trying to appear composed, I watched the pressure itself, not the interaction, not the stakes, not the impression I was making, just the pressure. And when I saw it clearly, not as me, but as a reflex, an old system firing on its own, something inside me stopped. It felt like unplugging a cord, a soft internal drop, a lowering, a release, like stepping out of a costume you didn't realize you were wearing. My thoughts slowed instantly, not because I tried to calm them, but because there was suddenly nothing fueling them. My chest loosened. My breathing deepened on its own. My shoulders dropped half an inch. My face softened without effort. The tension behind my eyes dissolved. It was like the entire internal control room powered down. No evaluation, no prediction, no monitoring, no calculating, just presence, clean, immediate, unfiltered. And here's the part people never expect. The shift wasn't emotional. It wasn't psychological. It was physical. The body knows when awareness returns to it. It reorganizes instantly. And while this was happening internally, something external shifted just as dramatically. I hadn't even finished forming my next sentence when I saw it happen. They leaned in slightly. Their tone warmed. Their eyes softened. Their replies expanded. Their posture opened. Their energy synchronized with mine. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The dynamic changed instantly. Like the air between us became less charged, less effortful, less tense. And here's the wild part. They responded not to what I said, but to the absence of pressure. Because humans read internal state faster than speech. When my monitoring shut off, my field shifted. My presence stabilized. My energy became coherent. And their nervous system recognized the change before their conscious mind could interpret it. This is the part people call magnetism or charisma. But it's not charisma. It's coherence. The conversation continued, but something was different. I wasn't performing. I wasn't calculating. I wasn't predicting. I wasn't interpreting myself from the outside. I was simply there. My timing slowed, naturally, not consciously. My thoughts uncluttered. My voice became warm without effort. My words came from clarity, not strategy. My presence felt grounded instead of braced. And the wildest part? I said less, but everything landed more. Because presence carries more weight than precision. Opportunities had always felt sticky for me before. Like I had to push, perform, or overextend to make things go well. But in that moment, reality felt soft, receptive, cooperative. My internal state changed, and the external world aligned around it instantly. This was the moment I realized something life-changing. Reality doesn't respond to who you try to be. It responds to the version of you that exists when you stop interfering with yourself. And quitting self-monitoring removes the interference. I walked away feeling like someone had opened a door inside my mind I didn't even know existed. Not confidence, not hype, not empowerment, just clarity. A deep, grounded sense of, This is who I am without the observer. And that version of me was a completely different human being. The kind of person people listen to without knowing why. The kind of person whose presence calms a room. The kind of person others gravitate toward. The kind of person who doesn't chase outcomes, because outcomes now follow them. Most people think that self-monitoring is a harmless habit. A little internal checking, a little self-correction, a little inner commentary running in the background. They think it's just being aware, but the truth is far more disruptive. Self-monitoring is not awareness. It is a neurological distortion that alters your identity, your behavior, and the way reality responds to you in real time. And the moment you turn it off, the entire architecture of your experience shifts. Here's why. When you're not monitoring yourself, your brain routes sensory, emotional, and social data through your primary processing system. Direct perception, direct interpretation, direct response, direct presence. It's fluid, natural, fast, efficient. You respond from clarity instead of commentary. But the moment self-monitoring activates, your brain reroutes everything through a secondary channel. Self-evaluation, self-comparison, self-prediction, self-correction, self-judgment, self-defense, self-analysis. This creates a cognitive split. You stop experiencing the moment. You start experiencing yourself experiencing the moment. This is the observer loop. And it has catastrophic effects. It doesn't take a full second. It doesn't take a spoken mistake. It doesn't take a visible flaw. A delay of 200 to 400 milliseconds is enough for someone's subconscious mind to conclude something is off. Something is tense. Something is being controlled. Something is being hidden. Something is unstable. Humans evolved to detect micro-incongruence as a survival instinct. Your body knows when another person isn't fully in themselves. So when you self-monitor, you don't just feel disconnected, you broadcast disconnection. And people immediately change their tone, posture, warmth, openness, trust, engagement, length of replies, willingness to invest in you. The social field reorganizes around your instability. This is why self-monitoring collapses opportunities before they start. Most people think they're being judged for their words, but in reality, they're being judged for their internal pressure signature. Pressure leaks as slightly sharpened voice tone, hyper-controlled facial expressions, artificial politeness, over-explaining, micro-pauses before speaking, micro-faster replies, over-eagerness, emotional misalignment, eyes that check instead of connect, shoulders that hover instead of rest. None of this is intentional. None of this is visible in isolation. But collectively, it signals, being around me will take work. And humans avoid work. Not consciously, instinctively. The nervous system prioritizes energetic efficiency, not moral fairness. Self-monitoring creates noise in your internal system, not emotional noise, neurological noise. The signal-to-noise ratio collapses, your clarity collapses, your timing collapses, your authenticity collapses, your ability to read the environment collapses. But the moment you stop monitoring, your attention drops back into your body. Your perception becomes immediate, your presence becomes fluid, your clarity rises, your nervous system regulates itself. Your reactions become congruent. Your micro-expressions align with your intention. Your words feel grounded instead of managed. This is coherence. And coherent internal states produce coherent external outcomes. Humans unconsciously scan every interaction for one thing. Is this person internally stable? Not, are they smart? Not, are they impressive? Not, are they confident? Not, do they know what they're doing? Stability. Because stability signals safety, predictability, low energetic cost, emotional clarity, psychological strength, low risk, high trust, and nothing destroys perceived stability faster than self-monitoring. Because self-monitoring looks, at a nervous system level, like internal instability. People can't articulate this. They just feel it. When you stop monitoring, your inner field stabilizes instantly, and people feel that. You become someone they can relax around. Someone they can trust faster. Someone whose presence feels good. Someone who requires no calibration. Someone who doesn't need managing. This is why quitting the observer loop changes how everyone treats you. Not over years, not over months, not over weeks. Immediately. When you monitor yourself, every decision you make comes through a space of compression. Is this the right move? What will they think? Is this safe? Will this backfire? Am I doing this wrong? Your path narrows. Your identity contracts. Your options shrink. Your strategies become defensive instead of expressive. Your intuition gets drowned out. Your timing becomes reactive instead of instinctive. But once the observer loop collapses, you act from expansion. Your choices come from clarity instead of compensation. Your intuition becomes audible. Your identity stops folding in on itself. Your decisions come from grounded presence, not self-narration. Reality begins responding to the identity you express when you're not filtering yourself through fear. This is why opportunities flow more easily when you're not monitoring yourself. Not because you're luckier, but because your signal is clean, and clean signals pull life toward them. Most personal change takes time, but the end of self-monitoring feels instant. Why? Because you're not learning something new. You're removing something artificial. The real you isn't born, it's revealed. That's why the shift feels like sudden calm, sudden clarity, sudden perceptual depth, sudden emotional balance, sudden social fluidity, sudden magnetism, sudden alignment, sudden relief. It's not growth, it's restoration. You stop living from the layer that was distorting everything. When people experience this shift once, they think they understand it. They don't. One moment of non-monitoring is a glimpse, but sustained non-monitoring, that rewires reality. Because once you learn to notice pressure, drop the internal agenda, re-enter the body, stay in presence instead of prediction, you stop being the version of you shaped by fear, and you become the version shaped by coherence. That identity attracts better relationships, better timing, better conversations, better intuition, better opportunities, better decisions, better outcomes. Because reality always aligns with your internal state. Shift the state. Shift the reality. Every major shift in human psychology can be reduced to one truth. Awareness destabilizes the old pattern. Practice installs the new one. You've already destabilized the pattern. You felt it the moment I described the observer loop. Your mind recognized itself. Now you need the practice that turns this recognition into a new baseline identity. This is not a tip. It is not a technique. It is not a motivational trick. This is a protocol. A neurological recalibration designed to break the observer loop automatically, repeatedly, and permanently. A protocol that works because it operates below conscious thought, in the exact layer where self-monitoring lives. We're going to walk through it in 3 stages: detection, decompression, re-entry. But before we begin, you need to understand one thing. You cannot think your way out of the observer loop. You must shift states, not thoughts. Thoughts live inside the loop. State determines whether the loop is even running. What you're about to learn bypasses the loop entirely. Most people don't even know when they enter the observer loop. It feels normal. It feels like trying to do well. It feels like being aware. It feels like making sure you don't mess up. But there are highly reliable microsigns, the same ones I've studied in myself and seen across thousands of interactions. These are the exact tells that mean you've switched from presence to monitoring. A. The microsurge in the chest. A barely noticeable tightening. Not fear. Anticipation. It happens before you speak, before you react, before you enter a moment that matters. This is the body bracing for self-evaluation. B. The thought that jumps ahead of the moment. Not a plan, not a strategy. Just a half-second predictive movement of the mind. How should I respond? Does this sound normal? What should I say next? The second you think ahead, you're not here. You're observing yourself. C. Facial muscles. That overstabilize your expression becomes slightly managed. Not fake, just controlled. as if you're trying to show normalcy instead of being normal. D. The split in attention. Part of your attention stays with the environment, part of it stays on yourself. This is the first fracture of presence. These microsigns are tiny, but they're everything. Because they reveal the exact second the loop takes control, and once you detect the loop, you can break it. Self-monitoring doesn't come from fear, it comes from agenda. Agenda is the silent expectation that the moment should unfold a certain way. It is the internal pressure that says, I need this to go well. I need this to be smooth. I need this to work. I need this to not go wrong. I need to be interpreted correctly. Agenda creates pressure. Pressure activates monitoring. Monitoring destroys presence. So the only way to collapse the loop is drop the agenda, keep the goal, release the expectation. Let's break this open. Goal says, I'll respond to whatever happens. Agenda says, it must happen the way I want. Goal keeps you flexible. Agenda tightens your nervous system. Goal increases clarity. Agenda increases self-monitoring. Goal is active. Agenda is reactive. Goal lowers pressure. Agenda amplifies it. When you drop agenda, you're not giving up on the moment. You're freeing yourself from the internal pressure that distorts it. It feels like this. Your chest softens. Your jaw releases. Your breath deepens. Your thoughts slow. Your urgency dissolves. Your presence returns. You don't try to relax. You simply remove what was forcing tension. This is decompression. It takes less than 5 seconds, and now you're ready for the final step. Once the agenda drops, you'll feel a subtle emptiness. A gap where your usual self-monitoring thoughts used to be. This is not a mistake. This is the opening. This is the doorway back into presence. To re-enter the moment, you do one thing. Shift your attention from thought to sensation. Not in a meditative way, not in a spiritual way, not in a ritualistic way. In the most literal, physical way possible. You place your awareness downward, into the chest, into the hands, into the weight of your body, into the temperature of the air, into the ground beneath you. Why? Because the body exists in the present, the mind exists in the narrative. When you anchor attention in the body, thought loses authority, monitoring loses fuel, the loop loses momentum. Presence becomes automatic. You are no longer observing yourself. You are in yourself. And when you are in yourself, people feel it instantly. Your voice deepens. Your timing aligns. Your facial expressions match your intention. Your field stabilizes. Your energy becomes low-cost and coherent. Your presence becomes magnetic by default. This is the shift that makes everything in life, conversation, opportunity, timing, connection, intuition, work the way it always should have. You are no longer fighting your own signal. You're emitting it clearly. Here's how it works in real time. 1. Notice the spike, the chest surge, the predictive thought, the micro-tension, the internal split. Don't fight it, just recognize it. 2. Drop the agenda. Say internally, it doesn't need to go any particular way. Instant decompression, instant shift. 3. Re-enter the body. Feel your chest, feel your hands, feel gravity, feel sensation. Presence returns, monitoring dissolves, your field settles into coherence. And the moment you achieve this state, reality responds. Not slowly, not eventually, immediately. Because you stopped leaking pressure. And once pressure disappears, you stop interfering with who you actually are. When this protocol becomes automatic, your entire life reorganizes around a new psychological center. You stop chasing impressions. You stop overthinking sentences. You stop anticipating outcomes. You stop replaying conversations. You stop feeling behind. You stop feeling off. You stop self-correcting. You stop leaking nervous energy. You stop feeling like you're performing your identity. Everything becomes easier. Talking, listening, being, deciding, connecting, acting, feeling, responding. Your reality stops glitching. Your timing improves. Your intuition sharpens. Your confidence stabilizes. Your decisions become cleaner. Your interactions deepen. Your opportunities multiply. Because the world is no longer responding to the noise you were generating. It's responding to the presence you're generating. And that presence is unmistakable. People feel it. People trust it. People follow it. People relax around it. People open up to it. People align with it. This is the end of the observer loop. Not conceptually, neurologically. And once it ends, you never go back. There is always a moment in every transformation, every awakening, every psychological shift, where something stops being a concept and becomes a baseline truth inside your identity. This is that moment. This is where everything you've realized throughout this video integrates into something deeper than understanding. It becomes instinct. It becomes your new operating system. It becomes the version of you that no longer monitors itself, because there is nothing left inside you that needs monitoring. The observer loop dissolves. The internal pressure collapses. Your presence becomes clean, coherent, unforced, undeniable. And reality begins reorganizing around this new signal you're emitting. Let's walk this final integration together. Before today, you believed your behavior shaped how others saw you. You believed if you spoke well, acted confidently, projected strength, managed impressions, and stayed aware, people would respond better. You were wrong, and now you know why. People were never responding to your behavior. They were responding to the pressure behind it. Every subtle urgency, every micro movement of self-correction, every fragment of internal noise, every moment you left yourself and entered self-surveillance. That was the signal. And you didn't know you were sending it. But now you do. That awareness alone breaks the loop because you can't unknow the mechanics of your own mind. You can't re-enter illusions you've already seen through. And you've seen through one of the biggest illusions of all. Your perception of yourself was shaping how others perceived you. Not because they saw your self-image, but because they felt its pressure. Now that pressure is gone. And when pressure disappears, your natural self, the self that never needed fixing, emerges effortlessly. The greatest cost of the observer loop is not social tension. It's not missed opportunity. It's not awkwardness, anxiety, or self-consciousness. The greatest cost was internal. It was the energy you spent trying to manage a moment instead of living inside it. It was the bandwidth you lost by watching yourself instead of being yourself. It was the exhaustion of constantly correcting, adjusting, anticipating, rehearsing. You were splitting your consciousness in two, the one who acted and the one who monitored the action. That split was the real drain. That split was the root of instability. That split was why life felt heavier than it should. But now, there is no split. There is no watcher behind the eyes. There is no second voice evaluating your choices. There is only you, unified, embodied, unfragmented. The self that acts and the self that observes have collapsed into one. Your energy is whole again. Your presence is aligned again. Your attention is integrated again. You're not thinking about yourself anymore. You're inhabiting yourself. That is the shift. People think change takes time. They think identity is a slow, gradual evolution. They think transformation comes from repetition, discipline, and effort. But psychological physics doesn't work like that. Identity shifts occur in a single moment when awareness crosses a threshold it cannot uncross. Like lighting a match. Like waking from a dream. Like stepping through a door that locks behind you. One realization changes everything. And what you realize today is irreversible. From this moment forward, your body will recognize the spike the instant it happens. Your awareness will drop the agenda before pressure has time to build. Your attention will return to the body without forcing it to. Your presence will stabilize even in moments that used to provoke anxiety. Your timing will naturally align because nothing is interrupting your internal rhythm. Your energy will feel grounded, calm, and clean because you are no longer leaking urgency through microtension. And others will respond to this shift instantly, instinctively, unconsciously. Because internal stability is felt, not seen. You've stopped sending the signal that repels. You've begun emitting the signal that attracts. And attraction is effortless when nothing inside you is working against you. Let's look at what changes next, because it won't be small. Conversations feel different. You're no longer pre-correcting yourself. People feel safe around you. They open up faster. They trust deeper. They relax automatically. Opportunities stop slipping away. You're not transmitting hidden urgency. Your presence is steady. You're no longer trying to get it right, so things naturally go right. Self-expression becomes fluid. You don't plan sentences. You don't perform identity. You don't edit yourself mid-thought. You speak from clarity instead of fear. Your intuition strengthens. Without noise, you hear yourself. You feel timing. You sense openings and alignments you used to miss. Your decisions improve dramatically. You're no longer choosing from pressure. You're choosing from clarity. Your actions stop compensating for insecurity and start expressing your real intelligence. Your identity feels stable for the first time. You're not becoming someone else. You're becoming yourself without interference. And that is the version of you life aligns with the fastest. Every transformation you attempted before this was built on performance. Act confident. Project strength. Control your tone. Hold eye contact. Breathe deeply. Use techniques. Regulate your nervous system. Do shadow work. Reframe your beliefs. All of those approaches failed for one specific reason. They try to fix behavior instead of removing the pressure that distorts it. You were trying to stack new habits on top of a self-monitoring loop that was still running underground. You were decorating a room without removing the mold underneath. But today, you address the root. The internal pressure that triggered monitoring, that broke presence, that distorted perception, that repelled opportunity, that reinforced insecurity, that kept you in the loop. Once the root dissolves, the entire structure collapses. This is why the shift lasts. You didn't add anything new. You removed what was blocking what was always natural. Presence does not need to be created. It needs to be uncovered. And now it is. I want you to absorb this fully. You were never lacking confidence. You were leaking pressure. All your life, you interpreted the effects of pressure as flaws in your personality. Overthinking, awkwardness, insecurity, stiffness, self-correction, social friction, missed timing, difficulty connecting, fear of judgment, not feeling fully yourself. But none of those were you. They were symptoms of one mechanic, monitoring yourself instead of being yourself. And the moment that mechanic stops operating, all the symptoms disappear. You were not broken. You were interrupted. You were not insecure. You were overloaded. You were not socially off. You were self-surveilling. Now you're not. And this is the truest version of you you've ever felt. The one without noise. The one without pressure. The one without internal resistance. The one that simply is. The one that reality reorganizes around. The one that doesn't chase opportunities because opportunities can finally reach it. This is the you that was trying to surface your entire life, and now it finally has. Before we complete this video, I want you to make a declaration in the comments, not for engagement, but to anchor the identity shift in your nervous system. Write only this: I am no longer monitoring myself. That sentence collapses the old pattern and stabilizes the new one. It signals to your mind that the old operating system is no longer active. It signals to your body that it can stop bracing. It signals to your identity that the observer loop is over. It signals to your future that you're ready to receive what pressure once repelled. And when you write that sentence with intention, you're not just declaring a truth, you're stepping into a new one. A reality where presence is effortless, where confidence is quiet, where alignment is natural, where opportunity flows, where you stop trying to get things right because you finally stopped interfering with yourself. This is the beginning of your life without the observer loop, and everything changes from here.